Welcome to the world of Paranormal M. Subscribe and turn on notifications to stay tuned in to our captivating narratives that push the boundaries of belief. Prepare to be awed by our latest tales. The Mirror Ghost experienced something so fucking creepy I was an insomniac for weeks after this. I'm usually known for having a highly logical and realistic approach towards life. Hence, I was against comprehending the whole ghosts, paranormal, and supernatural experience thing. But ever since this occurred, I've remained silent and neutral to the whole debate, attempting to observe and read and learn more. The room where this happened was previously used by my late grandmother, who had passed away around 6 months before this incident. It's important to visualize the room to understand the incident completely. The room was of a rectangular cross-section, with the entrance being in the smaller-sided one, in one of the corners. Right in front of the entrance, immediately, was an attic wooden dressing room, comprising of an old mirror and a plank and a wooden cupboard, which had mirrors attached to its doors. A double-cot bed was placed right in front of these two. I like sleeping with minimal light and doors closed. I used to sleep facing the mirror on the cupboard, on the right edge of the bed. I was in a deep sleep when suddenly around 3:30 a.m. I got up with my heartbeat pumping high and me sweating profusely. I was feeling feverish and weak. It was an extremely unnatural vibe. These things didn't make much sense to me. I tried to calm myself down, checked the time, and decided to go back to sleep. This whole experience was around 8 to 10 seconds. Now is when things got extremely bizarre. Right before I closed my eyes, in that split second, I could see something in that mirror, the one attached to the cupboard right opposite to me. At this moment, my heartbeat jumped out of bounds. I could feel my sweat dropping down, my mind going insane by this. As I don't believe in such things, I exploded in my head, questioning everything. Something was hovering right above me, with its hands inside my head. It was made up of bones, with its head looking like that of an alien organism, with weird facial hair over an unnatural skull structure. The face was very disfigured, almost insect-like, and it was hovering in raggedy gray-colored clothing. I had to see it again to make myself sure that I wasn't just paranoid or insane. So, after 2 to 3 seconds of panic, I opened my eyes and looked in the mirror. I find it still above me with its hands deep inside my head. It was doing something. The moment it noticed me watching in the mirror, it started moving along the edge towards the dark corner which was adjacent to the entrance. Now I turn to my left and see there's nothing. I turn to the cupboard mirror and I see it hovering away. Turn back to the left, yet again nothing. Turned to the dressing table mirror again, and I could see it hovering towards the corner of the room. Well, I couldn't see the same when I turned my head, so by this point, I was a shell shock. Goosebumps all over, in a complete state of panic and paranoia, moving my head left and straight repeatedly as I watched it hover to the corner of the room and vanish into thin air. At this point, I couldn't control or calm myself as I attempted to go about it with logic. It just didn't seem to make any sense. I saw that thing clearly in the mirrors while I didn't see anything outside of it. I turned on the lights and just stayed up Googling about such experiences, trying to get myself out of the panic and shock. It took me weeks to get myself sleeping normally after that. The haunting of my apartment. I might need help. I'm a 17-year-old and I live in Bangladesh. I live with my parents and 2 brothers in an apartment that we own. My parents bought it before I was born. We've been hearing sounds like heavy furniture moving in the apartment above us at midnight, and sometimes sounds of stomping in and out of our apartment since I was 4. That's what I think caused that. I know that this was just because I was a toddler. My mom asked the owners of that apartment about this, but they claimed to have never heard or moved anything that late at night. One night at around 3 o'clock in the morning, 2017, my dad went to the washroom, and he ran back asking if any of us came near the washroom or not. None of us did, and he told us to check the apartment if there's any intruder. After an hour of searching, we were sure that there was no intruder. He explained why he made us search. He was very sure that he saw a shadow around 3 feet tall, and it ran the moment my dad saw it. After a few months of this incident, my dad felt something pushed him in the washroom. In April of 2018, my dad saw the shadow again. He called us right at that moment from our room at the hour of 2 o'clock at night. This time I told everyone to be quiet and stay in my room. I turned off every electrical appliance except for the lights. It was so silent I could hear the fan from the apartment upstairs. I sat in the room my dad saw the shadow in and turned on my phone camera. I asked, "If anything's here in this apartment, please give me a sign. Can you show yourself or move the bottle over there? If you can push people, you can push that bottle. If anything's here, please give me any sign." With the corner of my eyes, I saw a black figure standing in the balcony. Our balcony is connected with 3 rooms, so it's quite a big balcony. I quickly moved my head and it was there, the shadow. The shadow was there. It was a translucent, dark human-like figure, 3 feet tall and no face. Even though it was translucent and had no face, I could feel that the shadow was looking at me. I froze for a second. Then I quickly pointed my camera at the shadow in hopes of having proof, but it ran before I got the chance to get in the camera. I ran behind it, but as soon as I reached the balcony and turned to the direction that it ran, there was nothing. It disappeared before I reached the balcony. I came back to my room and asked my dad, "Is the shadow you saw translucent?" "Yeah," he said. "Was it 3 feet tall?" Again, his answer was yes. "Did it have a face?" No, it didn't," he replied. I wasn't pretty damn sure that I saw this thing that my dad saw. I concentrated on the video, hoping I got something, but when I reached the part where I saw the shadow, my hopes of proof were gone. I got nothing. Just when I was going to pause the video and delete it, I heard a voice in the video. I can swear I didn't hear this when I was recording, and as I mentioned before, it was very quiet, and if anyone said anything, I should have heard it. In the recording, the moment I came from the balcony to the middle of the room in which I saw the shadow, in a deep voice was recorded in the video. What it said was incoherent. It was my first EVP. A few weeks later, I was in my room texting my friends and slowly felt very sleepy. It was around 3 at night, and I have some local horror podcasts downloaded on my phone, and it suddenly started playing. I paused and closed my eyes again. The podcast started playing again, and this time, I couldn't move. Suddenly, a bell started ringing in front of my door. I tried to scream, I struggled to scream, but no use. My parents are light sleepers, and it's impossible that my parents won't wake up to the sound of this loud, but no one came. The sound of the bell dimmed slowly and stopped. Finally, my throat could make a voice, and the podcast stopped. I could move again. I asked my parents if they heard anything. They were surprised to hear what happened, and they confirmed that they didn't hear anything at all. A month after this incident, everything was normal. And after I came back from school, my mom asked, "What happened last night?" I was so surprised. I was pretty sure everything was normal. My mom explained that they had heard me scream and everyone woke up and ran into my room. I was standing on my bed and pointing towards the balcony, and there was nothing. I'm surprised because I'm sure I don't sleepwalk, and I remember the exact time I wake up in the night before to drink water, so I don't remember what happened. The very next day, my something invisible grabbed my mom's head and threw her towards a wall. Thankfully, the injury wasn't severe, just a little swelling. She swore she didn't trip, and she felt something grabbed her head, but it was invisible. We almost forgot these happened after about a year of nothing paranormal happening. It was the season of mangoes in our country. Every house had at least one basket of mangoes. It was 10 at night, and I was cutting a mango, and my mom suddenly scolded me. "Why did you tell me your dad wanted a mango when he didn't?" I was shocked as I was sitting here the whole time cutting a mango, and I explained it to my mom that it wasn't me. My mom said that she clearly saw me coming into her room, and it was my voice that she heard. It was me that she saw. Yet, it wasn't me. I can't be in two places at once. After this happened, we got our apartment blessed, and nothing paranormal happened afterwards. We did some renovations, and again a week after that, my little brother saw a shadow. I told this story to a paranormal investigator, and right after he heard that, we did some renovation and he asked if we did anything with the main door or any entrance doors. We did, and he said blessing a house is like a mosquito net. We changed the doors, which means that now there are holes in the net, and now shadows can come in again. In May of 2020, I discovered long, straight scratches in my back from the top end. It's impossible for me to scratch my back like this. And one day in the middle of May, I heard a knock on my door. The door was open and there was no one standing there who could knock. A minute later, I heard the knock again, and this time, I turned to see immediately, but no one was there. The 31st of May 2020 at 3:50 a.m., my older brother ran into our parents' room and told them something grabbed his hand and pulled it. He didn't see what it was. I'll keep you updated if anything new happens. If any of you know what this is and what I can do, please leave a comment. The haunting of my apartment. Footsteps. It was the 1st of June 2020. I tried sleeping in my younger brother's room, since the charging socket is near the bed, and he sleeps with our parents. After 12 o'clock, I heard 2 footsteps. Maybe from the apartment above ours, but my bed vibrated. It vibrated as beds normally vibrate when somebody stomps near it. After 2 or 3 minutes, I heard the footsteps again. I turned on the lights, but there was nothing. I ran out of the room and filled a bottle with holy water. I came back in the room, and a few minutes after, I turned off the light. I heard footsteps again. I sprinkled some holy water in that direction, and again, after a few minutes, I heard the footsteps again. This time, I sprinkled holy water in the whole room, and the footsteps were gone. An hour or two went by, and suddenly I heard 2 footsteps, and my bed vibrated again. I was too tired, so I was sprinkling holy water in the direction, and I fell asleep sprinkling it. June 2nd, 2020. I turned off the lights in that room, and as I went to bed, exactly at 11:45, I heard 3 footsteps. This time, I noped out of the room and slept in my own room. I told my mom to be in that room for her midnight prayers. I made an excuse that I'll be in the room that she normally prays in. The next day, she told me she heard footsteps in the room that night. Now, I'm sure it isn't playing in my mind. I forgot to record the date and time, but this time, I tried to record the footsteps. Every night any of us try to sleep in that room, they hear the footsteps. As soon as I heard the footsteps for the first time that night, I went to my elder brother in the next room and asked if he heard any footsteps himself. He didn't hear any, so I think it isn't the apartment upstairs. I went back in the room and sprinkled holy water on the bed and on my, whenever I heard the footsteps to make sure I don't get attacked. When I replayed the recording, the noise from the fan was too loud to hear anything else. 26th of June, 2020. This night I tried to record the footsteps. Again. I turned on the AC this time instead of the fan, and I kept the recorder on. After 1 o'clock I heard the first footsteps, just like every time the bed vibrated. Again, after a few minutes I heard footsteps. I hear 2 or 3 footsteps every time. It's just the usual. To mark the time I heard the footsteps, I said something out loud after the footsteps. So when I hear the recording, I know when I heard the footsteps. My mom's phone was with me, and she had an alarm for 3 o'clock. The moment the phone vibrated, the footsteps went crazy. I heard 20 to 30 footsteps in a row. It's way more than usual. It sounded like the invisible entity was almost running around in the whole room. I sprinkled holy water immediately, and I screamed out a prayer. The pace of the footsteps increased while I was praying, and the second the prayer ended, the footsteps stopped. Nothing else happened that night. As I replayed 3 hours of recording the next day, I heard sounds of breathing or growling, or perhaps a faint voice, just when I heard the footsteps, but no footsteps were recorded. Strangely, what I heard wasn't recorded, and what I didn't hear was. In the recording, I was sprinkling holy water as the footsteps went crazy, and I heard a voice. In my language, it whispered, "What is this?" Then a normal voice, "Oh, this." After this was recorded, I started praying, and nothing unusual could be heard while I was praying. I'm 100% sure my house is haunted, and here's why. Me and my roommate moved into this place about 10 months ago. The landlord who lives above us told us this place is haunted. Our landlord is 80 years old and channels. She says she channels her higher self, as well as living people, people who passed on, and Ashtar. Okay, that's cool, sure. When we looked at the house, we saw the sauna. It has an old wooden door. But after we moved in, handprints appeared on the door, and they looked like they were dragging down. Sure, that's fine. Fast forward a little bit, and I'm in the bathroom. My roommate downstairs in his room. I hear footsteps coming up the stairs, and I wait to see if he pops up. Nope. Call him over Facebook, and I ask, "Are you upstairs?" I can hear him downstairs in the room. "No, I'm in bed, why?" I explained that I heard footsteps. I go down to his room, and later he needs to use the bathroom. The same thing happens to him. He hears footsteps, and no one's there. We stayed in the same room that night, and next thing that happened was creepy as hell. Me and my roommate were sitting in his bedroom, watching some videos and drawing. He has this old music snow globe, and he has it on his dresser. The video that we had playing was a gameplay video, and it had music box music for the background song. We thought the sound was a little odd, so we paused it, put the video back 10 seconds and played it again. Then we realized it was the snow globe that was playing. We basically shit ourselves. A while later, where we were in bed, in the middle of the night, when we both heard a bang. We didn't go see what it was because, nope. When we got up the next day, his Silver the Hedgehog pop-up figure was on the ground, with his limbs, all 4 of them, ripped off. There was a hand on the sofa, 2 feet off the ground, a leg under a blanket, and 2 just on the floor. The GameCube that we have was also opened, and the creepy thing was, the little clear stand pop figures have was unmoved and untouched. A month later, I used this filter on TikTok. It's supposed to catch ghosts. It has glowing eyes and would appear when it finds a face. I felt like something was watching me and I started to film. I walked up the stairs to the main floor and something popped up at face level. Looking like it was peeking around the corner, I ran into my room. A week ago, our landlord was out for a family thing, and we heard someone running up and down the hall at like 11 p.m. at night. We heard banging and thumping. It sounded like someone was dropping like 45 pounds. Our landlord's not the strongest and can't run or carry things. We find out later that she wasn't even home. Again, a few days ago, I was downstairs trying to find some towels, and my roommate's upstairs. He said, Rose, are you up here?" I replied with just, "Nope, Why? Not even a minute later, I hear something loudly whisper in my ear, "Pookie," which is just a weird thing to me and my roommate say to each other. I jumped out of my skin and looked to the door, wondering if a roommate snuck up on me, but he was upstairs, still in the bathroom. 2 days ago, I cleaned the bathroom. All was good. Like, I was proud of that room. Yesterday, we found a dead spider on the dresser. Today, all the legs were ripped off and placed around it. We constantly feel like we're being watched, and we always hear footsteps. Have you ever felt like somebody is giving you a death glare? You can imagine it. You can feel it. But when you look around, no one's there. That's how we feel a lot. When we come home from work, we can feel it looking at us through the window. But we're moving soon, and it's starting to get worse. We mentioned moving before the whispering in my ear. I don't know if it wants us to stay or go. Phone call from recently deceased father's phone. This happened around June of this year. It was the latest of things that's happened to me and my family in the last 2 years. I posted about something I saw in my grandmother's house a few months ago. Still not sure what it was. My father died late last year. He wasn't feeling well, and that was pretty uncharacteristic of him, as he was known for being in shape and not really looking his age. He was then diagnosed with late-stage cancer, then passed away a month after. It was too sudden. My family and I still struggle to accept how quick it was, especially to somebody like him. My mother wanted to keep her and my father's tradition of traveling to his homeland every year. Went alone with a bit of his ashes. I stayed home to help out my brothers with their grandmother. Everything was going fine. A day later, my mother calls me and asks if we called her on my father's phone. I asked my brother about this, and he was just as confused as I was. He went to my parents' room and dug out my father's phone. It was bone dry, and we had to plug it in to even turn it on. With my mother still on the phone, we told her. My mother's a believer, unlike me, so she accepted it. I like to think that it gave her some comfort. Again, I can't explain it. Short of my mother lying, which she would never do, especially with stuff about my father. There's no other reason that I can think of that explains why my mother received a call from my father's phone. Talking about these experiences is somewhat therapeutic, though. A lot more stuff has happened. My skeptical mind keeps trying to explain these things. Some I can, others like this and the post before I just can't. I might post more of those instances if the mood strikes. Cross-country hitchhiker premonition. This happened in 1993. My girlfriend, 22, and I, 21, drove across country to visit some colleges that we were looking at graduate studies during spring break. We didn't have much money, so we had an arrangement where one person would drive and the other person would sleep, and we would trade places, thus avoiding hotels and minimizing the time it takes to drive so many miles. I was sleeping, girlfriend was driving. It was 3 a.m. and we were heading east on 90 in Montana, traveling through the Crow Reservation. My girlfriend woke me up. She said it was urgent. She said that she had a strong feeling that she had to pick up a hitchhiker. It was dark and we were traveling 70 miles an hour and there was no hitchhiker. I was not happy to be woken up, and I explained that 1, waking me up at 3 a.m. impedes my ability to drive for my shift. 2, it's 3 a.m. and there's no hitchhiker. 3, picking up a hitchhiker is absurd. And 4, a strong feeling is irrelevant if there is, in fact, no hitchhiker. Did I mention that there was no hitchhiker? I felt secure in my argument, you could say that. and she felt secure in her feeling that she had to pick up a hitchhiker. It would seem that we were at an impasse. I thought my girlfriend was illogical and absurd. This whole time we were driving 70 miles an hour, and it was low visibility because of the dark, and the headlights only illuminate so much, so there's no way that we could have seen. There ahead on the side of the road was a hitchhiker. He had a van on the side of the road. My girlfriend stopped. I didn't say anything because I had hinged my whole argument around there being no hitchhiker, and here they stood at 3 a.m. on the side of the road. We picked him up and drove into Wyoming. Our car stopped working. It just lost power and we went to the side of the road. The three of us hitchhiked, but ultimately a police cruiser picked us up. We ended up going to the hitchhiker's house in Sheridan and camped out there while our car was towed in, manually using a rope, I might add. And they fixed the Ford Escort wagon with a vacuum leak. I mean, to think a piece of bubblegum could have fixed the problem. But when the car was fixed, we were on our way again. Just the occasional visitor. My family has a little cabin in the wooded hills of New York, southern tier. Most of the time, it's an amazing place to go and relax in nature. No bad vibes or dark pasts to be found, at least as far back as we know the history of the land. Thing is, if you spend the night and get very lucky, you'll get to hear a visitor on the porch. If you're even quote-unquote luckier, that visitor might make their way inside and have a walk around the kitchen. While nobody has ever seen or even had the faintest trace of whoever or whatever stops by, the loud heel-toe clomping of heavy boots pacing back and forth along that length of the porch is hard to miss. It's also very easy to replicate. Basically, anyone with a pair of boots can take a slow, deliberate walk and sound exactly like our guest. Thing is, this cabin is up on pylons to stabilize it when the ground moves in the winter, and the floor is very shaky and bouncy. You can feel a person walking, especially if they're clomping about in boots. There isn't the slightest vibration when the footsteps start outside, or inside for that matter. Now, my father and I are, you could say, the skeptical type. We need to try all the mundane things that could possibly make a noise before we admit it's something paranormal. Thing is, this has been happening for longer than I've been alive, and not a single person has been able to replicate it. Nothing on the porch blowing in the breeze sounds like boots, and they certainly don't move from one end of the porch to the other. The gutters are secure, and someone would have seen an animal by now, and of course, it only happens at night, which I used to think was a ghost hunting show cliche, but I guess it is what it is. Physical interaction. I'm usually a skeptical person, but I've had experiences which I can't explain. One of them happened last summer when I was visiting family in the UK. They were renovating their house, which is about 350 years old, and almost every part of the house had been demolished and transformed into a modern home, except for the entryway, which remained the only part of the original structure. The entryway is connected to the kitchen and has one of those doors which has two parts, where it's basically in half and you can open the top and the bottom. I was stirring my coffee in the kitchen. Everyone had left the house for personal errands. And while stirring, I suddenly got this inexplicable feeling where you feel like you're being watched. I could almost hear what sounded like walking on gravel, which was outside the entryway. I thought maybe that one of my cousins were home and I was expecting them to walk in at any second, yet they didn't. Things then got suddenly quiet, Even the birds stopped chirping. It was almost kind of like I zoned out. I'm not sure how to explain it, but after zoning out in silence for about 4 seconds, I heard a very loud and sudden bang. I looked over towards the source of the noise, and the entryway door's top was shaking and swinging outward. I went over to it, peeked outside. Nobody. I looked around for something which could have maybe fallen and hit it. Nothing. Nobody was home, no cars were in the driveway. No large animals around either. The birds then began chirping again. Their house isn't on a public road, it's in the countryside. What's weird is that both parts of the door were shut, and although it opens both ways, you'd have had to hit it from the inside for it to have swung outward like it did. My 7-year-old saw something that terrified her. Help? Okay, so first off, I come from a long line of witches. My mother and a couple of my siblings see things as well, and I grew up on the East Coast in multiple haunted houses, and I've had endless paranormal experiences, to the point where even seeing an occasional spirit barely bothers me anymore. My kids also see spirits, especially my oldest, a 9-year-old girl. I've also basically been interested in cryptids and crime and a lot of strange things ever since I was little, way before it was quote-unquote cool. Anyway, I mention that because I really know my cryptid stories, and I have no idea what the hell my kids saw, so I'd like some opinions. Anyways, I'm now in the PNW, and I've seen weird things here, but less spirits than the East. So tonight, my daughter went across the house to the bedroom that I keep as my office, which has tons of clothing and stuff to list on eBay and mailing supplies and things like that. It's a mess right now. I threw clean comforters in there that I washed so my cats and dogs don't lay all over them or knock them on the floor. One wall is made of 2 huge windows facing our front. Anyways, my youngest, my 7-year-old girl, went to grab a comforter out of there to bring up to me in my bed. Because I was changing the sheets for us to go to bed soon, she was gone for like 15 minutes or more, and I was getting annoyed because I wasn't sure what was taking her so long and why she wasn't saying anything when I kept calling out to her. I just wanted to make sure that she was grabbing the comforter. I finally was about to go check, since I put all the sheets on and all that stuff already, and she comes screaming and crying into my room, absolutely losing it, crying so hard she's shrill and red-faced. I couldn't even understand what she was saying. I asked if she was okay, and she said no. I thought she got hurt and asked if she fell down. She shook her head no again. She finally told me what happened after trying to calm her down for a good 3 or more minutes. She said she saw something watching her through the big windows. We have had 2 break-ins before, and it's not a very safe area, so I immediately started to freak out and asked if it was a man, because I'd call to the police and get my gun. She said no, it isn't a man. I asked her again who was looking at her. She said it was as tall as a man, but reddish pink, like it had no skin, and had no face, and had hands but clumps for feet. She kept telling me that he had no face and no ears and not even a bump where his nose should be, and he was standing at the window, twitching, and that she got tangled up into the comforter and was on the floor crying, scared to move or yell. Until she finally jumped up and ran, got her headphones tangled in the door, and the thing ran by the window, and she abandoned them. I checked, and they are tangled in the door. She ran for me. I asked her if she was crying and freaking out. So she was screaming at me not to go in there, so I didn't. I ran across the house and got my 9-year-old and brought her into my room to sleep as well, because I'm unnerved. She was 100% serious about what she saw, I would never make something like that up, especially not with the kind of terror she had. Does anyone know what the fuck looks like that? A raw hamburger Slender Man, I guess? I'm weirded the hell out and I really don't want to sleep now. I was attacked by something dark in my dreams, and I'm convinced an angel or something saved me. When I was about 5 or 6, Dad had enough of me climbing into their bed at night and told me that day I was to stay in my own bed from now on. He was not a great dad to have in the first place, and so any experience with him was traumatizing for a young girl. I had gone to bed, and a short while later, I began to have the most horrific dream of my life. I still remember it 30-ish years later. I awoke in the dream to terror, blood everywhere. On me, on the walls, the floor. Blood was splashed like a murder scene from Dexter. I knew my entire family had been murdered, and I could sense the haunting being near me, wanting to hunt me. It wanted me. I could sense it in my dream. There was a feeling of malice and a sense that I was the prey. Feelings that still haunt me to this day. I sensed that I could not let this thing touch me, but that it already had its claws wrapped around my soul. It did not have me yet, but I felt like I was in serious danger. This is when I became aware that I was in a dream. You see, I know that I'm a sensitive. I was born vulnerable. I sense emotions in others, and often sense bad things and some good things when they're near. But I digress. Back to the story. With a sudden awareness that I was dreaming came the ability to create things inside my mind. Dad and I had a conversation about lucid dreaming because I would constantly climb into their bed at night due to nightmares. Unfortunately, that also brought the awareness that I was stuck inside my dream, inside my very mind. This obviously caused more terror and adrenaline to flood my psyche. I was in full fight-or-flight mode from this thing that very clearly wanted to do something very bad to me. So I ran, hid, and played tricks to think I was in one place when I was in another. But where is a 6-year-old child going to hide from some ancient evil, especially one that has already gained access to the vulnerable, newly emerged sensitive that doesn't even realize she has this new ability? I was absolutely terrified and had nowhere to go, and the thing was exceptionally strong. This went on for quite a while, and I could feel the dark being getting closer to that part of me that would be open. It would be opening the final lock, if you will, into my soul. I remember thinking, where could I go that it wouldn't find me? I was beginning to panic. I could only fight intrinsically for so long. I was using my abilities inadvertently when I took control of the dreamscape. But that would only hold the dark being for so long. With its experience, age, and powers of its own, it was only a matter of time. Plus, it could just come back the next night and try again, right? Suddenly, the dream simply vanished, and I hit REM. I know, abrupt, right? I've always been a light sleeper, especially for any type of light source, so I was out. When I stirred awake to a brilliant white light surrounding me. I was folded against someone's chest and held in their arms as they walked down my home's hallway to my parents' room at the end. I just saw enough to see where I was, that I was safe, and then I was out again. This new being must have sensed that I was awake and could see them because I was overwhelmed by sleep again, and I don't remember making it to the end of the hallway, let alone being placed in my parents' bed. Right next to my mom, literally almost into her very arms. I awoke to my mom's blow dryer the next morning, had no idea how I got there. When Mom and I talked about it, she voiced to me that she had seen the glowing being as well. That night she had mistaken it for my dad, but when she asked him, he stated he had been asleep all night and hadn't gotten up for anything. We were shocked, to say the least. I actually just recently realized that I hadn't told my mother the first half of the story, and she only had a partial picture of the entire encounter. There were two beings that night, one of dark and malevolence, one of light and joy. The second probably saved my life. I'm not certain that my powers were manifesting that week, but because I was so young, I was unable to protect myself. Adults generally develop a natural barrier over time, but I was vulnerable. That thing saw an opportunity in my new abilities and thought to take my soul while it could. I was especially vulnerable as I had just lost my baby sister to drowning very recently, a terrible tragedy that likely triggered the activation of my abilities. I don't adhere to Christian values or beliefs anymore. Having grown up in the church made me decidedly non-Christian, but I can't deny that this very real experience happened to me, especially since I was not the only person to see one of these beings. Mom believes it was Jesus, but I'm more inclined to believe it was just our family guardian that I've seen and felt over the years, many times beyond this first encounter. Who's really to say? All I can do is share the story, write it down as a true experience from my personal history, and share it with you, that both types of energy are out there. Whether you believe me or not, it's your choice. Some of it does sound crazy. Oh, this silly woman thinks she's got some psychic abilities. The story is obviously fake. Feel free to be a skeptic. I'm kind of one myself. I have a degree in psychology. I realize how it sounds. All I can say is this really happened to me and my family, and remember, I also have a corroborating witness, so... Something woke me up at 4 a.m., and might be related to several events that happened before. This event happened in the middle of last half of last year of 2022, and the middle of the first half of this year, 2023. Here's the background story. I, Mike, am a student in the Polytechnic of Port Dickson, Malaysia. I was living in a house with 6 of my classmates in a nearby, somewhat remote small town of Pasir Panjang in the same district. We're used to commuting to our college using several roads with a stretch of about 10 kilometers, which runs in the middle of the forest and an oil palm plantation. The road had no road lights. We depend on our high beams when using that road at night because we literally can't see anything beyond 20 meters. I have a bike which I use to commute from place to place, just like the other 5 of my classmates. One guy had a car, which we often go carpooling on too. Now, on to the first story. 2022. Me and 5 of my mates went out to eat at night after a hiking trip to a nearby hiking spot on the weekend, leaving one guy, and let's call him Chad, at home because he was just sleeping. While we were returning home from eating outside, we received a text in the group chat that we made for us, and it was from my friend back home saying something like, "What time will you come home?" It felt lonely in this house because Mike is still sleeping in his room. It was weird because I was in the car with the rest of the housemates, so I replied, "I'm not in the house, bro. I went with them." He was silent after that until we reached home. After reaching home, we opened the door and saw him crouching in a fetal position by the staircase in the living room with a scared expression on his face. We all were about to ask what was wrong, but he told us what happened. He said he saw me sleeping on the floor in my room, feet facing the door with the lights and fan off. He didn't think about anything at first until he got my message in the group chat. He realized that it was not me that he saw, and his stomach dropped upon reading my message. He even went to check my room again to make sure nobody was in there, and nobody was. We were joking around about him and even knocked on my room's door to let myself know that I'm going in. We didn't take him too seriously, just to calm his nerves down. We don't have trouble sleeping that night, but I'm sure he didn't get any sleep. A few weeks go on, and one day when I was downstairs with one of my housemates doing assignments while waiting for my other housemates to arrive from eating outside, I noticed someone walking barefoot outside the gate. The gate was open, so I had to look and analyze the person walking. It made footstep sounds, but something felt off. So I went over to have a look. I opened my door and walked to the gate to see, but the man was gone. I was curious, so I walked in the same direction as I saw it walking and looked along each road at the four-way. The person was gone. It was really quick judging from the time that it took me to reach the outside gate, maybe 10 seconds. I went back inside to tell my housemate who's doing assessments about what had just happened. Fast forward a few weeks, and I was riding my motorcycle alone through the dark road after eating outside with my mates. This time, I'm the only person, the only one not in the car with them, and midway there was an intersection, which was the only lit-up part of the road, and I was going to switch lanes. So I looked at my side mirror to make sure that there were no cars behind me so I can safely merge. But I noticed a reflection of a person in a white cloth on my back seat waving in the wind. I was wearing all black at that time. I didn't think of it too much because I'm more concerned about my safety on the dark road. As I went deeper into the road, the reflection became darker and darker due to the absence of light in the area, so I kept on riding home without much thought. But as I was arriving home, I parked my bike outside the gate and looked at my bike from afar. I didn't want to open the gate because I didn't want anything that followed me to come inside with me, so I waited for my friends to arrive before making a decision. I told quote-unquote it to go away and to not follow me. But I don't know if it worked. I was having cold sweats and chills at that time. As my friends arrive, Chad asked me what was wrong. I told him everything that happened like the story above. He told me to calm down and advised me to tell it to go away and to not bother us. I did just that and went inside like normal. No nightmares nor disturbances that night, so I believe it was all fine. Ever since that day, I'm getting more and more paranoid when riding my bike at night. I noticed this particular smell when riding. It smells like flowers, but it was unpleasantly fragrant. Fragrant. Feels like you're smelling someone with perfume up close. But the smell don't come every time that I went through that road, though. Another day I went through another road that led to our home. It's been a couple of weeks since I last smelled that fragrant smell. Until that moment, I felt like something was wrong, and I said out loud in my full-faced helmet, "Do not follow me." However, at that moment, I didn't see anything behind me in my side mirror. It was getting annoyed at that point. Or perhaps I don't know. I don't even feel scared of it, nor threatened. It just feels like you're being played. We then went on semester break, which I attended a camp for a month and returned back to the same house the next semester. We didn't have any encounters for a good couple of months from the beginning of the semester, until one day that I was sleeping downstairs in the living room and was woken up by a voice that seemed to mimic the voice of Chad. Wake up, Mike! I thought something bad had happened, so I opened my eyes. But to my vision, the whole living room is dark, with the exception of our porch light shining through. I did saw someone tall standing over me, but I thought it was Chad who woke me up. So I asked him, "What's wrong?" But I didn't get a reply. I then looked at the thing standing over me to see if it's really him. It was really tall and dark, but I couldn't see a face since it was dark and I just woke up from sleep. I then realized something is off by the unusual length of delay in getting a response. So I told it, "Don't fucking bother me, I'm sleeping," then rolled to my right and closed my eyes. I then heard footsteps at the staircase. It was not like somebody going back up to their room, but instead, the footsteps sounded like it was going up and down the stairs multiple times. I got annoyed by this and looked at the staircase with the intention to yell at whoever was playing at the staircase. But there was nobody there. The sound of footsteps were still there and continued for about 5 minutes. Then my friend's watch alarm sounded, which then I knew what time it was. The watch showed 5 a.m., so this incident happened at like 4+ a.m. I told my housemates everything in the morning. Until today, I do not know what entities were these things that hitched a ride behind me, the smell and the tall figure calling my name and waking me up. All I knew was what I saw, what I heard, and what I smelled, and that I felt them. Might need to taste them to have the complete experience of the 5 senses. Feel free to speculate what could be the entity that I encountered, or how it might be related, or not. Ask Reddit. When I was a sophomore in college, I got a knock on my door. I'd just gotten off the phone with my girlfriend, who had been lecturing me on how I was a dick and didn't do anything nice. By the way, this is integral to the story. I answered the door, and there was a guy who gave me a story about how his wife was in labor in a city about an hour away, and he needed a ride to his friend's house so he could borrow his car. Normally, I would have laughed and slammed the door in his face. But due to the lecture from my girlfriend, I decided today was the day I began being the nice guy. I agreed to give the guy a ride. He seemed nice enough. We talked about basketball and video games, and he had to drive really far off to a remote apartment complex that was still under construction. Weird, but I went along with it. When we get there, he directs me to park in an area really far off. Then he starts going on about how he needs money, too. I figure, you know what? I've gone this far, I might as well see this good deed through. I give him a $10 bill. Then he goes on about how that isn't enough to get where he needs to go. What the hell? I give him all the money that I have, including the change in my car, which was like $46. He gives me a strange look, and then a weird silence where it seems like he doesn't know how to react. Then he gives me a really genuine thank you and gets out of the car. I go home and go on with my day. About an hour later, there's a knock on my door. It's a cop. I answer, and he asks me if I've seen this guy. He shows me a picture of the guy I gave a ride to. No mistaking it. It was him. Same hair, same neck tattoo, and same gold teeth. I say, yeah, I just gave him a ride like an hour ago. The cop looks like he just saw a ghost. Then he proceeds to tell me about how this guy is wanted for 3 murders. His standard procedure is to go door to door until he finds someone who's stupid enough to give him a ride. Then he leads them to a remote location, pulls a gun, executes them, and steals their car. It's extremely ironic that being nice almost got me killed and probably saved my life at the exact same time. Need help identifying egg-looking entity. This is going to be a long one, so buckle up. Title might sound ridiculous, but I'm being 100% serious. Also, please excuse any errors since English isn't my first language. You're excused. I was born in St. Petersburg, Russia, and that's where I spent most of my life. I moved to a different country at 16 years old. This happened when I was about 8 or 9. Little disclaimer. At the time, I was really into all things supernatural, like many kids are. I was constantly reading about ghosts, aliens, vampires, you name it. That, and the fact that my father was being emotionally and physically abusive to both myself and my mother, parents are divorced shortly after, makes me kinda doubt that what I saw and felt wasn't actually created by my brain. Nevertheless, I'm 1000% sure it was not a dream, and I haven't experienced anything like that ever again, even in the most stressful, painful, and difficult moments of my life. I was in my room in our little flat in the center of the city, lying in my bed, lights off, playing with my stuffed animals, preparing to go to sleep. Not sure what hour of the night it was, but it must have been pretty late, since my parents had gone to bed already. I was facing the wall. My bed was placed against it, and on the opposite wall there was a window, under which stood my table and an office chair. I was calm, sleepy, consumed by my own thoughts. Suddenly I felt an incredibly, intense sense of terror, as if there was something sinister in the room behind me, staring at me. It was so intense that I couldn't even find the courage to turn around and look at it. So I didn't. I laid with my eyes closed, heart pounding, until I finally managed to fall asleep. But the very next night it happened again. Same scenario, except this time I was facing the room. The edge of my bed was pretty tall to stop me from rolling off of it in my sleep. So I still couldn't see whatever was there. But just like the first time, I felt its presence, and I was terrified. But my curiosity got the best of me, and I raised my head to take a look. Floating in the center of the room, right above my chair, was something I lacked the vocabulary to describe with one word. It looked like a vaguely rectangular thing, roughly 2 meters tall, 1.5 meters wide, give or take, and it was glowing softly. It had a bright yellow center, also vaguely rectangular, and the rest of it was white, kind of like an egg. If I had to describe its texture, I would say it looked like a mix between a cloud and the surface of a body of water in constant motion. That's why I said its shape was vague, as it was constantly changing slightly and didn't have any sharp edges. The color also wasn't uniform, with some parts more opaque than others. Now that I've reread my probably very confusing description, kind of sounds like I'm describing a portal, but it didn't feel inviting in the slightest. It felt like an independent entity with a mind of its own, and it felt hostile. That said, I looked at it for only a couple of seconds before I plunged my head back into the pillow, just trying to hide behind the edge of the bed, and I closed my eyes. I don't exactly remember what happened after that, but what I assume and hope would happen is that I fell asleep after a while. Just like on the first night. It's been over 10 years now. I haven't seen or felt it again, and I really hope it stays that way. I still think about it from time to time, though. What was it? Was it watching me? Was it trying to make its presence known? And most importantly, where is it now? Haunted Doll's Ghost. This happened probably half a year ago, but I didn't have this account back then, and just didn't think to post it here. But I think it's worth sharing anyway. So I'm a 19-year-old male, and I've been living in a small apartment for a while now, alone. I collect secondhand porcelain and clown dolls, and there's only one of them that's been showing me peculiar acts. She's a porcelain doll, my only non-clown doll. I bought her since she looked almost sad. I don't know how to explain that. I take a pretty good care of all my dolls. I clean them and keep them in a showcase. First weird thing that happened was that she had moved. She usually is facing forward, but she had turned towards my apartment's door, which is on her right. Another weird thing that she's done is that her eyes have been following me. I thought at first that I probably didn't see correctly, and also that I myself had moved the doll without realizing. But I think my mind changed after the ghost encounter. I was drawing and watching videos on my laptop when I noticed something weird on my left, near my bed and the showcase. There's a curtain that separates my bed and the showcase and the bookcases that didn't hide my bedroom all the way. I live in a one-room apartment, so my bedroom and living room is the same room. The curtain brings some privacy. I turned my head to look, as if to convince myself that there wasn't anything creepy, and instead, I saw a small, probably around 6 or 8-year-old girl. She had long, wavy, almost blonde, almost white, long, dark dress that looked old. I didn't see clearly since I was so surprised and kind of scared, to be honest. But the ghost was vivid. I could see half of her dress since she was only peeking, but I could see her feet and head from behind the curtain. I remember she had a sort of scared and unsure look on her face. But when I tried to look again, she was already gone. I wasn't that scared after it, just cautious and shocked that I saw what I saw. I've been taking good care of the doll, which I know was the ghost's doll. I sense a connection between them, and none of my other dolls have shown any paranormality. I haven't seen her since. I hope she's okay, either roaming around here or resting finally, I don't know. I hope my text is good. English isn't my first language. And please tell me if I broke any rules. I read them, but I'm always a bit unsure about posting new subreddits and stuff. I also tried to add a photo of the doll too. Ask Reddit. I met a man once who knew everything about me and said that he jumped off the San Francisco Bridge many years ago, even though I met him in Tybee Island, Georgia. Story. True in parentheses. This has haunted me for a long time. I was about 19 or 20 at that time, and I was living in Savannah, Georgia. I drank a lot. I had a crappy fake ID too. I worked this terrible job as a grunt laborer. The kind where you go to those temp labor agencies like Able Body or Labor Finders, and I'd show up at 4 a.m., work until 5 p.m., and drink myself to sleep after only taking home maybe $60 for the day. I was supposed to go to work this particular morning, but I decided to skip. It's a labor agency. They'll just find somebody else. I told the girlfriend to tell her that I want to go to the beach, Tybee. I had already started drinking. She comes over, we hop on my big, ugly van, pack up some rods, and head to the beach. I decided to have a drink across from the beach at this little bar. This is where the story gets interesting. Shortly after ordering my drink, I get this really weird feeling. I became hyper-aware of my surroundings. The door opens and I see this guy walk in and out of my peripheral vision. There was a seat between me and my girlfriend, but the bar was empty at like 9 a.m. He could have sat anywhere else. Yet, he chooses to sit right between her and I. Then he starts doing these things with his fingers. The bar top was reflective, and he takes his fingers like 2 little legs and starts just walking with them, skating with them on top of the counter. I guess this isn't something out of the ordinary, but I took notice because I was in school and I did that all the time. I pretended I had rollerblades on my fingers and that I was skating around my desk. I hated school, and I was always distracting myself. So I became kind of mesmerized for some reason. That's when he looks at me, and in this really kind of Germanic or Nordic accent, he says, "I notice you're a man who pays attention to detail. I'm always a man who pays attention to detail myself." Now, before I continue, I have to describe this guy. He had this short, spiky hair that was bleached at the tips, kind of like a late 90s style. He had really expensive clothes on, like a nice Prada leather jacket, nice designer jeans, really nice boots. He seemed like the kind of gay guy with an awesome fashion sense and really distinctive taste. I always remember this, because I think to myself, some weird homeless crazy guy couldn't have afforded those clothes. Anyway, the other thing that stuck out was his eyes. They were a piercing gray. It reminded me of like a husky's eyes, but his pupils just stayed this disturbing pinpoint size. They were either just extremely small, which caused his look to be kind of terrifying. His teeth were normal, right? But not at the same time. I don't know how to explain it. They were sharper than they should be, as if they were filed slightly. His hands were normal, but his fingernails were slightly long and pointed, as if he deliberately did it. He kept licking his teeth too, as if he were salivating. The thing about this guy is that you look at him and everything seems normal, but off at the same time, so you're questioning if you're crazy for thinking this. This guy then begins to start talking about the relationship between me and my girlfriend, but really strangely. He's talking about how beautiful she is and how I should pay more attention to her. I was kind of a dick to her. Shortly after he began talking like this, I almost had this knowing feeling come over me, like I knew this guy was not human. I look at my girlfriend and say, "You need to leave." She just kind of looks at me like she knows too. Without a word of protest, she gets up quietly and leaves. Later I learned that she went next door to go get a coffee. That's when this guy literally says to me with the utmost confidence, "You were supposed to go fishing today." He points at the beach across the street. "If you had, I would have drowned you in that ocean." And I shit you fucking not, he hissed. Again, for some reason, this overwhelming calm had come over me. I just ask, "Who are you?" He answers back with this crazy guttural language like "ak back," but it was really long. It sounded Arabic or Hebrew or something. And I just, for some reason, without skipping a beat, and I have no idea why it was so calm to this day, I ask, "Say it in a way I can understand." He says, "You can call me Jimmy C. I jumped off the San Francisco Bridge years ago, and we've been watching you." From there on out, he never referred to himself as me or I, but only we. The conversation became something very strange after this. He was saying things like, "We see you taking a bath. We wish we too could feel the warmth of the water and the comfort of the steam," and other stuff. He kept buying me drinks too, specifically whiskey sours. It was like he had an endless supply of money. He smoked Marlboro ultralight cigarettes. After I don't know how long, because I lost sense of time, I told him I'm gonna leave. I walked next door to get my girlfriend, and she's stone silent. We start driving home. Don't say a word. Then I just ask, "Do you know what that was?" She just says, "That was a demon." This girl had parents that were scientists. She was really analytical, completely non-religious. That was the first thing that she said out of her mouth. Now, I don't really say this part before because to me, this is the most important aspect of the story, so I'll say it now. Because it's what's happened after this that screwed me up for fucking years. The last thing this Jimmy C guy said to me before I left is this: "Look at my car." I look outside. I see one of those newer Volkswagen Beetles. It was white. "What does the license plate say?" I look at the plate, and it literally says, "Fierce." He looks me dead in the eyes and says, "The next time you'll see me, I'll be driving a black Mercedes, and the license plate will say Utopia." Stupid, right? That night, I was still calm. I don't know why. I felt like that guy in the office space after his hypnotherapist died right in front of him, and he was weirdly zen. But my girlfriend started having terrible nightmares of this guy's head just staring at her in her dreams. Weeks went by, and that's when the encounter started affecting me. I found myself becoming paranoid about that black fucking Mercedes. Every black car I saw, I checked if it was a Mercedes, and if it was, I immediately looked at the license plate. Started doing it when I watched TV or movies as well. I couldn't stop. Now I'm going to fast forward a bit. About 10 years go by and I'm 29. So this is just recently. And in silence, when I'm alone, when I'm drinking, I often think about this encounter. I still look at black Mercedes every time they pass, but I'm not so much anxious about it anymore as curious. And I remember that my girlfriend at the time always kept a journal. And by now, I'm pretty sure that I'm insane, but maybe I was drunk. Maybe I'm not remembering any of this correctly. After years of trying to find news articles of a Jimmy C. that committed suicide on a San Francisco bridge, looking at black cars and so on, I feel like I'd grown out of it. Yet still, I had to know. So last year, I tracked down my ex-girlfriend. We ended up on bad terms. I find out that she's a school teacher in Wisconsin, has married a woman, and is actually trying to have a child. I figured she's not gonna talk to me, but I send her a Facebook message anyway. I ask her if she can find the journal from that day, because I have to really know about these events and if they line up with mine. Sure enough, she had it, and it contained even more detail than what I remembered, because she had literally written it at the coffee shop next door right after it happened.